Greetings, fellow humans. My name is Alistair Lord. I am the Renaissance Yorkshireman. Today, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the Middle Paleolithic. And the first thing to know is the time frame that I'm talking about does not exactly match with the Middle Paleolithic. It mostly matches. So I'm using this partly out of convenience, but partly because it's there as geological time, and part of the time frame that I'm talking about does match with this geological time frame. So the time frame that I'm talking about begins with anatomically modern Homo sapiens, and according to the National Geographic, at least 200,000 years ago, but perhaps as long as 250,000 years ago, there were anatomically modern humans on planet Earth. So this time frame could be as long as about 250,000 years. But, there's some wiggle room in there. And it finishes at the beginning of the Younger Dryas, which is approximately 12,800 years ago. Our Homo sapien ancestors, who were roaming planet Earth, let's say 225,000 years ago, the problems that they had on a day-to-day basis were fundamentally different from the problems that humans have today. So today, I don't have to be worried about being hunted down by a dire wolf or a saber-toothed tiger, for example. But at the time of the Middle Paleolithic, there were megafauna that today are extinct. So woolly rhinos, mastodons, woolly mammoths, the short-faced bear, saber-toothed tiger, the dire wolf. And packs of dire wolves, for example, will have represented a real danger to small bands of humans. Because bear in mind, at this time, as far as we are aware, there were no states. Human group size were bands of between about 6 and 60 people, so between about 1 and 15 families, let's say. Tribes of perhaps 60 to 300 people, and chieftains of 300 to maybe 5,000 people maximum. But there were no state as far as we are aware. So if you're a small band, you really do have to be worried about some of this megafauna. Now, of course, if you're a chieftain of 5,000 people, you're probably a lot less worried about being hunted down by packs of direwolves or saber-toothed cats, because saber-toothed tigers, saber-toothed cats, whatever you want to call them, are unlikely to attack a group of 5,000 humans. But if you're a group of 50 or less, you better pay attention to what's going on in your environment, or else you might end up on the plate for kitty. So our Homo sapien ancestors, particularly the ones who were roaming in smaller groups, really had to pay attention to what was going on, because they could have been hunted down by packs of animals, megafauna. And also 225,000 years ago, it was harsh Ice Age conditions, so our ancestors undoubtedly will have had periods of fasting where there was no food available. And then perhaps they've had a successful hunt and all of a sudden they've got lots of food and they're feasting. So there will have been a lot more fasting and feasting than there is today. Because today, if you're hungry and you have money in your pocket, you can walk down to the supermarket and buy some food. But that was not the case for our ancestors. So let's fast forward a bit from 225,000 years ago until 73,000 years ago. 73,000 years ago, there was the Toba supervolcanic eruption in what is today modern-day Indonesia. According to the evidence that I've read from the National Geographic, human population fell to as low as perhaps 10,000 people. So quite possibly more than 99% of humans died because of the Toba supervolcanic eruption. Now, that must have imprinted in some way in our ancestors' psychology, because this is huge destruction. And imagine only 10,000 humans on planet Earth 73,000 years ago. it may be that the historians and archaeologists who've examined the evidence and come up with this figure, they could be wrong. You know, I mean, there might have been more than 10,000, 50,000, who knows? But presumably they're not just throwing these figures out for the laugh. You know, presumably they have actually examined the evidence. And if this is true, it has a lot of implications. Firstly, I think that this must have imprinted in some way psychologically with these people. And this may have been passed down in the form of myth to us and to our ancestors. And secondly, it means that every single person, the more than 7 billion people on planet Earth, are all descended from this group of 10,000 people, the size of the size of a town, really. So we are all related, you know. People talk about the human family, but actually, in a certain sense, it's literally true that we are all descended from this small group of humans 73,000 years ago. According to the Out of Africa hypothesis, about 60,000 years ago, humans were confined to a particular part of Africa, and at that point we spread out of Africa. And some homo sapiens went left into Europe, and some went right into Asia. And eventually the ones who got into Asia crossed the Bering Strait and got into North America, and then spread down through North America into South America. Now, it may be that this hypothesis is wrong. It may be that it's partly correct, or it may be that it's completely correct. We don't really know. So let's assume that it's at least partly correct. Now, when Homo sapiens came out of Africa into Asia and Europe, the Eurasian landmass, there were already intelligent hominids in the Eurasian landmass, Neanderthals. And according to evidence that I've read in the National Geographic, modern day Europeans, Asians and Amerindians, but not Africans, have about 1 to 3% Neanderthal DNA. So we know that there must have been sexual unions between Homo sapiens and Homo neanderthalis. Exactly how this occurred, we don't know. It could have been rape, it could have been love, or in different areas, it could have been one or the other. But sexual unions did occur. So mixed race children, Neanderthal and Homo sapien, were born in the past. And at some point in the past, Neanderthals died out as a separate species. Some people hypothesize that they were wiped out by humans, but apparently the evidence suggests that Neanderthals had a much higher need for calories than humans. So most male humans need about 2,000 calories per day, but most male Neanderthals needed about 4,000 calories a day. Now, if you're competing with other hominids in an environment which is quite harsh and unforgiving, and you need twice as many calories, that puts you at a disadvantage to your neighbours. So it's a perfectly reasonable hypothesis that in fact it wasn't humans who wiped out Neanderthals, but they died out because of competition for scarce calorific resources. But in fact, we really don't know. Around 30 to 40,000 years ago, cave art appears. According to Genevieve von Petzinger, there are 32 symbols that keep occurring in different sites in Europe in the cave art. We don't know why. But it's very interesting. This could represent some of the first development of written language. But also something else that's very interesting in this cave art is that therianthropes keep appearing. Now, what is a therianthrope, you may ask? Well, if you've seen pictures of Egyptian gods, so for example, Thoth, I believe, has a human body and an animal head. He is an example of a therianthrope. So a therianthrope, human body, animal head. Wolf head, lion head, dog head, bird head, owl head, eagle head, doesn't matter. Any kind of animal head on a human body is a therianthrope. So these therianthropes keep appearing and these symbols keep appearing in the cave art. Why? Why were there these 32 symbols and these therianthropes? Well, nobody can say for sure. One hypothesis that's been put forward for the symbols and for the appearance of therianthropes is the use of magic mushrooms by our ancestors. And, well, if you're going to take a load of magic mushrooms and go into a dark cave for extended periods, you're probably going to see some crazy shit. But where did it come from? Did it come from the human subconscious, or did it come from elsewhere? Were there other intelligent beings trying to communicate with our ancestors? Well, who knows? But it's a reasonable hypothesis, and I quite like the idea myself. From about 24,000 years ago to 17,000 years ago, maximum glaciation occurs. And after 17,000 years ago, ice starts to retreat until we get to the Younger Dryas. The Younger Dryas starts about 10,800 BC and lasts for about 1,200 years. And I'll be talking about that in the next video. Thank you for giving me your time today. Peace.